We insulted him, me and my sisters.
Hi, and welcome to Twin Flames Between Worlds podcast. My name is Tabitha.
And I'm Liesl.
We have a very special guest today. I am so excited. We got Natalie Van Sistine here today from the graphic audio who plays Nesta.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness. I am so hyped. I tell this, and I'm telling you this now because I got too excited pre-recording. I could not fathom. Like, when I say a perfect production, I mean that to the fullest extent of the law. Because I'm not like necessarily a critical thinker. Like, I mean, did I just insult myself?
Yes. We're off to a great start.
I am not overtly critical about
I can see where you're going with this. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I love Twilight. I love kind of, things that are meant to be that and not critic, Mm-hmm. But with the music, the directing, the acting, everything is so on point and everybody was so perfectly cast. I heard your voice. First book, heard Nesta's voice come out and I was like,
that's Nesta.
That is amazing and that is perfect. I am going to love this.
Yeah,
so
the casting was really well done.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear.
So yeah, please go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Van Sistine. I've been a voice actor for I started in January of 2009, so I guess, does that mean 16 years?
Oh, wow.
My brain, I just was like, wait a second. I usually say 10, 15 years, and I'm like, oh my God, it's more than 15 now. What the hell?
Impressive experience.
Yeah. I got started in the wild, wild west of online voice acting, and here we are. I play Nesta in Thorns and Roses. If you listen to other graph audio, I'm in Tress of the Emerald Sea. I play Anne. And I'm Dr. Arada in Murderbot, and you can hear me as one of the co-lead in the X comic book adaptation series. I'm one of the leads in Forget This Ever Happened. That was kind of fun, YA romance novel with your leads. That was really fun. I've worked with graph audio for about 4 years now or so, which is really fun. I've been really cool. I do video games, I anime, I do commercial, e-learning. If you got a talking thing to send me and you got money to hire me, here I am. So I do it all. I had to, a lot of my career was me being like, yeah, absolutely. I know what that is. I can figure this out, I hope,
Studying in college again.
Yeah. There's a lot of, this is definitely a very fake till you make it kind of career, at least in my experience.
The only reason I'm laughing is because I'm like, yeah, I can understand that.
There's one actor I met who, every we get asked, how you got started, or how do you recommend getting into the career? And he just goes, this career is like getting into Narnia. No one gets in the same way twice. And I have stolen that answer every single time because it is the most correct.
Oh God.
That actually works.
Yeah, that is amazing. That is so true because that's why I asked. Mm-hmm. Because I love hearing everybody's story into it because nobody has it the same way. Or maybe you can pick out little bits I got fouled from this friend or da-da-da. But no, that's amazing. So I guess that, yes, my question is, how did you get into it? And what kind of voice, do you prefer the voice act or have you ventured into more physical act?
Gotcha. So I spent a lot of time trying to be insanely practical and pragmatic about acting where we were talking a little bit and I'm from Wisconsin. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, I'm never going to act because I'm from Wisconsin, At most, I'm doing community theater, and that might be kind of fun, but I'm not going to be an actor. I'm not going to get paid to do this. It's so silly. You have to live in California or New York. So it just wasn't on my radar. I actually wanted to be a musician. I started playing piano in like the second grade, and I was that person where that was my whole personality, especially in high school. Like, I feel like I have to apologize, like figuring it out, but I'm so sorry for the person that I was. I was just really passionate. I didn't know how to like control it and temper it and have a social life, but we figure things out, as adults. But yeah, I was the music kid. I picked up the cello in middle school too, and I studied the orchestra. And then I hit about my sophomore year of high school, and all of a sudden, playing music was starting to hurt. And that shouldn't happen. And all my teachers were like, your technique is fine. There's no reason you should be experiencing pain. And it was excruciating. Especially like we really found out I was playing a Shostakovich piano concerto, and it's the piano concerto number 2, where it's just all octaves where you're going da 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 da. And I was like, I can't do this. This hurts. And so I was like, okay, I had planned on going in pedagogy. I really wanted to focus on piano for like intermediate to advanced students. And if I was going to do that, I was going to have to be tied to a piano for 8 hours a day, and I physically couldn't even last an hour. So I was like, okay, my whole plan, college, I had my midlife crisis at 17, which was really fun. So, so I'm sitting there like, what do I do with myself? And the only other things I really did was I really liked writing. I was starting to dabble in like independent writing spaces online, and that's how I found out like how forums work and started to be in touch with kind of this world that was like, oh, we can create things and put them out on the internet, and they're probably just like still going to be always hobby, but like it's a fun way to share stuff. And it's not just, boy, I sure hope my 2 friends at school like this, because they're the only ones who are going to sit down and read, anything I write, which appreciate them, but also it's not the same. So and then on top of that, to add insult to injury, my parents were like, hey, we're moving to the middle of nowhere, South Carolina. So I spent a lot of time in my room. I churned out a couple of manuscripts that are still sitting in a drawer somewhere. I'd love to do something with that eventually. But I was like, man, I really miss performing. And I had primarily been more in music, but I had done a little bit with theater, and I got really into musical theater, like at least the concept of it. I didn't know a lot of shows, but I would like the ones I was like really obsessive about. And I thought, oh, this acting thing again is cool. I'm never gonna, like the only way I'm gonna be like an actor is if I like make it big as an author, and then I can bully them into getting a cameo in like an adaptation of something like that level of, this is the only way I've ever, can even conceive of any sort of acting career at that point. So it's completely community theater, and I have always been a mid-size girly, which means I'm always the moms and always the more, the older characters. I never got play like, I was always very, very pretty strictly typecast, and I got really disheartened, just awful dysmorphia over it. It just was not a good time. So I'm sitting here going, okay, in theory, I love acting. I love this concept, but I hate theater. I hate being on stage. I hate everything. I hate the focus on the physicality. I'm not, I have this chronic pain condition, which spoilers have found out years later, I had fibromyalgia. And so, just nothing was pointing in the direction that I needed to performing on stage at all. So I just was kind of giving up on that idea. And then randomly, my sister was starting to watch independent animation on Newgrounds at the time, which the people who were there, and so she would occasionally share stuff with me. And then at some point I had the thought of like, hey, what if I could still do music, write music? Because there's these little indie animations, and maybe if I wrote music, do I have any experience? Do I know how to write music? Absolutely not. But how hard could it be? So I started looking on the Newgrounds forums, trying to figure out, is anyone looking for a composer and will let me, figure this out on the job? Because that is, again, like we're noticing a trend here. And while I was on the forums, there was a post where someone was like, hey, I need a composer, but also a voice actor for like, I think it was just like a random college age girl character. And it was just enough that it was like very straightforward. I was like, I think I could actually do that. That sounds kind of fun. Wouldn't that be crazy? I've got a mic built into my laptop. How hard could this be, And I didn't know what I was doing, but I remember submitting for that. And of course I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, well, kind of fun. Maybe more people are looking for voice actors out there. And I just started, Newgrounds had a forum. There's a forum that's actually still around to this day, a voice acting club that my friend Kira Buckland runs. And at the time, everything was on the forums. Now there's a very thriving Discord community, and people will collect all the resources there and on the server there. But it's still, the forum is still there technically if you need it. And there's all kinds of even more resources. Like back then, we were just making it up completely by the seat of our. It's so much easier to do this now because like everything was way more expensive. You had to like know what to buy, and like we were all recording with USB mics and no treatment and wide open rooms. Like no one knew it, but we were having a great time. So I started doing more, and one of the first things I really got into was audio drama. And I had grown up, I really love listening to audiobooks, and my favorite were always full cast ones that I could get. I love Brian Jake's Threadwall series. They were always full cast. He was an author who was also a radio personality, so he'd get all his radio friends to do the full cast audiobooks. So those were phenomenal. And I had was able to get the BBC Lord of the Rings, and I just really was like, oh, audio drama is so cool. I love this. And then it turned out that in the indie space, especially at that time in those early years, there were a lot of people that were like, hey, we could just write things, and then we could send out the script and people could individually record all parts, and then we can put them together. And, you know, we're using Audacity back then. And like, you know, there was a couple people that had some like bootleg sound effects CDs, and we just kind of all shared them around, and that was how we did it back then. And so a lot of people were making audio drama, and I dabbled my thumb, and that's a place I've always wanted to go back. And that's kind of as I was looking into that and going, wow, this is a really cool thing. Like maybe this would be kind of fun to do as a job. And I actually found out about graphic audio that way very early on, back in like 2010 or so. And but they were located in Maryland, and so I was like, there's not a whole lot of industry out there, and I was like, I don't know if I want to move to Maryland. So I just kind of always that back shelf and like, oh, that would be cool to work with, but I don't think it's gonna happen. So but yeah, I just kept into the indie space for a number of years, and because I didn't have this vision of being an actor, it just was a fun hobby for a while. But apparently I was good enough at it that I kind of like stumbling on more and more opportunities. And then slowly I started finding things where people were like, oh, hey, can you you know, we've got a local moving company, can we pay you, you know, a small fee to record a phone message, or, you know, a local commercial, and little things like that. And I was like, oh, well, I'm a broke college student, absolutely, that's right. And I got my degree in electronic engineering initially. And then but it was an associate degree, so I did a 2-year program, but it was 6 semesters. They say 2-year program, you just don't stop for 2 years. But I did it. And but by the time I was done with that, I was like, hey, I'm like starting to get paid for this voice acting thing, and I like working with audio. So I talked my dad into letting me go to art college for my bachelor's, and I got a degree in film with a focus on audio production. So I actually trained to be an engineer, thinking that like I like working with audio, and this will get me in the space, but it's going to be a more reliable career option, and then I can still continue to do the acting thing. And, you know, deathly practical from the get-go. Then the acting thing just kept going, and I've been a full-time actor for about 2 or 3 years now, just because it just kept building enough momentum that I was like, oh my goodness, I don't need to really, like, I still pick up other jobs from time to time, and, you know, things aren't busy. I'm like, yeah, I'll supplement my income, but like don't need to have anything like else pressing right now. So it's very weird to be like, I'm a full-time actor.
That's incredible. That's the dream for sure, at least for me. So
yeah. I mean, just be prepared for the long haul, but it can be done. I didn't think so, but here we are.
You totally give, I do want to say, you give sound techie vibes.
Oh, thank you. I will take that as a compliment.
Very much as a compliment. You definitely give those vibes. You know what you're doing in the booth.
Yeah, which I think is honestly just as important, especially if you're doing a lot of solo work. Because for me, you know, I have done a lot of like singing and tried like recording myself and whatnot, but it wasn't until I took a sound design class that I started realizing like what the technical thing was behind it and how I could make myself sound even better by doing that.
Well, that's amazing. Because so much you said about especially at the beginning, about like physical acting and everything. I don't know, the beauty about voice acting and stuff like this is that we can do it from different spaces. Like you don't have to be in Maryland to do them, and you don't have to be a certain body type, because we're not seeing you. All we're hearing is the voice.
And even the body type thing was a huge thing. And even like I really struggled with how to organically make eye contact when I was on the stage. It just was something that I never quite figured out the right like secret sauce with it. And so just being able to focus on the tech and the musicality of voiceover, I think I really benefited because I approach voice acting as a classical musician in a weird way where I'm thinking about dynamics, every single thing. You gotta have that dynamic. I know what shaping a phrase means and how to do that and the importance of big picture and the individual little pieces.
Like word painting and whatnot and expressions.
I mean, especially, okay, this is, and all respect to the men. No, the men, they do their job in the graphic audio for sure. They're very much like the beauty between hot, male, sexy voice and then nice, deep, resonant, thinking emotions. Like it's not just big male, hot. Like there's there's a balance. And then with all the women, damn, the level of dynamics and painting that is done. Because there are so many times in the I could give you a list of so many times in the graphic audio where I read it one way, heard you say it as Nesta in another way, and I'm like, she started so low in a good way. I thought she was going to immediately, at get-go, you transitioned Nesta's character for me so much in listening to it and being not just this graceful person right at the get-go, but especially in the text, it seems like she's very like venomous right out the bat. But no, especially in a scene, she kind of builds up to be Barb and whatever. And so that makes so much sense now, actually. Your musicality, that makes so much sense.
It adds so much to it.
Because we've talked about that with specific Melody Muse, because she's a singer as well. And about how, because we're music people, we're so in tuned with like the shift in character or like a shift in music or anything. That's why we're so like critical, but like it makes us feel so good though, that this is like, so good.
We see all of the little nuances that go in.
Yeah, because we actually have a part in our every episode at the end, we talk about the graphic audio. We go through each chapter and we're like, yo, this was awesome. This change in character was cool. I loved this blow up. I loved this character interaction. And yes, Rhysand is hot. Shut up. Like, Anthony, I don't want to hear you again. Please don't stop talking.
Right. But since we're kind of on the topic of how she's changed over the time, how did you acquire the role of Nesta Archeron?
So when the COVID lockdowns hit a couple months in, I remember I was randomly I was randomly on Facebook and I was in I think it was Women in Voiceover, some Facebook group that I had been added to at some point. And it's one of those things where you're like, you never know with some of these groups and some of these connections, what'll come of it. But I remember that I think I was just scrolling and, because we were indoors, that's what we were doing. And I remember just seeing something that was like, it was one of the actors who worked with graphic audio. And she said, hey, this company that I work for currently looking for more remote actors because they're not able to come into the studio or because they can't do in-studio recording right now. If you're interested in submitting, it's an audio drama company based out of Bethesda called Graphic Audio. Here's the link to submit your stuff. I dropped everything because all those years ago, I remembered like, oh, I would love to work with graphic audio. I'd love the opportunity to do audio drama professionally. And all of a sudden it just went plop right on my lap. Like, sometimes you go, well, I would love to do this. Literally 10 years later, there it was on my doorstep. And so I just immediately filled out the application, just like slam submitted. And I was so excited. They reached out to me. They had me do just a general audition so they could bank what my voice sounded like. So casting directors could use that as they were casting the shows. And it was just going through showing like what my acting range was like, my accent work was, and all that. And I got called in on a couple of different productions over the course of the year, had a great time. I was such a nerd. Every single time they'd call me in, I'd be like, they're like, thank you so much. Like, how did you find us? Every single time they're like, it's so random that we've just been finding all all these different people from all over the place. And every single time I was like, well, I'm actually a really big audio drama nerd and I really wanted to work with you guys. I'm just happy to be. I was like, and they were like, we have fans? Like, we have people who are, well, I mean, obviously they have, they're very loyal customer base. Obviously, like that's not me doing them credit, but I think they were just like, oh, we didn't know there was like people who like actually like knew about us and wanted to work for us. That is like such a, we've never had anyone who's like, yeah, we know your work and we specifically wanted to do this. It's always like, oh, well, I'm an actor and someone recommended me and I figured I'd try it out. But I was like, no, I really want to be here, very specifically here. And about a year in or so, maybe a year and a half, I want to say it was like November 20, I got an email from Colleen, who's the director, and I'd never worked with her before. I had seen her name like as a producer and director on all of things, but I'd not worked with her directly. It said, "Hey, Natalie, we're casting for Court of Thorns and Roses, and we'd like you to read for Nesta." And I had been vaguely aware of the series existing. I didn't know much about it. I knew it was something fairy tale retelling and along those lines. I didn't know that much about it. This was kind of in the dawning of the romantasy talk kind of era. And I was like just enough aware to know like kind of what it was. I did a little bit of Googling and I went, okay. And so I looked up who Nesta was and just got like the very basic bullet points. And I was like, okay, well, I was like, yeah, I see why they probably pegged me for this character. You know, I do a lot of like older sister type, slightly, you know, a little bit more on the slightly more mature type. And I was like, oh, this is a really long Wikipedia article. Okay, looks like she's got a lot going on. So she seems like she's probably going to be a complicated character just from that much. And then I had a live audition, and I've only one other time when they were casting the twins for Zodiac Academy. They also did a live audition for them.
Oh, you auditioned for them?
I did, yeah.
But good for them.
I haven't heard. Yeah, I know Kaya's one of them, and I love Kaya. So I was, when I saw that, I was like, well, that's a very obvious correct choice. I'm very happy for. So a week or two later, I'm in the call with Colleen, and she just goes, okay, so the author of this series is very involved in casting of the main character. She has a very specific vision. She's like not worked with an author like this before. This is very different for us. So we're trying to figure out how to get this vision aligned. And we've been back and forth on this character. We're getting like lots of different notes, and we just can't quite, seem to like peg down exactly what she's looking for. So here's what we know. Here's what she says she wants. Here's what she says she doesn't want. And the whole time I'm listening and I'm like, this is very much a character I play. I know that I am good at playing, and I can hear a lot of, oh yeah, I've done that. I'm very familiar with this performance. And I'm sitting there thinking too about it as a consumer, what I like to hear characters that sound this. And I'm kind of building a picture as she's giving me kind of wish lists there. And I'm going, okay, I have a feeling I can probably do this. So we did it was the scene with kind of the monologue from the second where they're talking queens. And so I do that monologue where she's telling them off and like, no, you don't care about us. You going to leave us to die and you don't care. And I got through that and I read it. We did a cold read and it went really well too. I was really, really happy with that initial cold read. And it was kind of at a point where I was like starting to really get into a cold read groove. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm nailing this. This feels really good. And I get done and Colleen just goes, I'm going to have you read it again just so we have it. But if she doesn't pick you, I don't know who we're going to get. So feeling in that moment that I was probably on some, or I hope I was like, okay, that's the best possible response you can get to like an in-person audition is that level of like, I don't even know what to tell you to do differently because that was what it was. So I left the audition feeling really good about it. I didn't, but I was like, I know it's a bigger property, so who knows like what's going on. Then I got called the email, for scheduling a couple weeks later, and I was like, oh cool. And at the time I had no idea what was coming up. I didn't know anything about it. So I had no idea that she was going to be like this, such a significant character and what she meant to people and how important the series was. But it's been really, really fun to grow into her. Every time I'd record a book, I was listening to the books as they were coming out too. So I was starting to get invested in the story. And then I'm like, well, now I want to know what's going to happen. And it was just really a fun way to also get acquainted with the story, was then listening to it. And then I would know what was going on with Nesta, and then I'd hear everything else and I'd be like, oh, that's what that was about. Which was so funny too, when there was an audio that went viral on top where she's the one where she's screaming for Cassian, and she's worried he's gonna, die, and I can't remember exactly the various of that. But I remember all of a sudden that was going, and I remember I hadn't listened to that part of the book yet, and I still didn't know what that was about. I just was like, oh, that scene came out, and everyone's like, this is so perfect. And I'm sitting here going, I didn't even know know what was happening. I just figured, I was like, oh, all of, Cassian 7 times in a row and it's all in caps. I probably need to make this earth shattering. And apparently
no, this is the, the SJMer in me that's just like, yep, final battle, like page, whatever. that was crazy. That scene itself was like, because I thought, again, that was like one of those moments where I was like, I thought she would sound like right out of the gate, but then it was like you built up to that with those 7 Cassia, like each one of them just cracked my heart further. And then like the final big one where he actually hears her, and it's like, oh my god.
Big piece of direction that I really like from a lot of directors I've worked with is that you were always trying to imagine as a voice actor what even though you are not physically performing a movement, what you could be doing physically. And I remember that specific scene. I'm like, oh, if she's yelling his name over and over again, she's trying to get to him. So I'm imagining that she's scrambling over rocks and like clawing her way up, and he's not hearing her, or she's not aware, and it's just getting more and more desperate with time. And so I think a lot of that helps with seeing when you're like trying to imagine the like physicality behind it, and it just adds a lot more than when you're like, oh no, there's 7 names battle, you're like hot and down and just like ready to be like, all right.
The throat. Yeah, I can't hear anyone as Nesta, especially you and John. Oh my god,
John's so great. I love it.
First of all, what a heartthrob. Also, this is my maybe this is like my straightness coming out of level of I'm like fangirling over the guys, but I'm also really invested in the women, just like in that, you're a badass, this is awesome, whatever, and then just go hard-eyed at
like, oh, the males are so cute.
Was there ever a moment that I have a question for you now? Was there ever like a moment like a Nesta or where like that was like a really hot thing as the bisexual on the couch? I want to know now. I actually want to know. Have you had like me at like level of how I get at John Cassian level of hotness?
I mean, I think okay. So for context, I have been listening to graphic audio as we like go through this. So I haven't listened to the full Silver Flame graphic audio yet, which I know that's going to be wonderful. But I think just really any of their main reaction, their interactions during ACOTAR. But I honestly, probably the monologue that you mentioned in Akamath in the second book of her going off at the queens.
You're just like hot.
It's like, okay, I see you.
I mean, even I could say that was amazing.
I think also just any time that Nesta got like softer in her voice.
I really do appreciate it. They were like, Natalie, if you're gonna do this, that's okay, but we need you to gain up because you are very soft sometimes.
Honestly, I really appreciated just soft moments, just because she was always like super like stiff and like hard in voice for because of her defenses, the walls that she had up. But the moments where she was softer, it's like, oh, here we're seeing a little bit more of her, and I can hear the difference between that. Or like when she was softer and talking with Elaine, for example, be able to hear that difference, which we've talked about before with other voice actors as well. But I think in the weird way, those were also hot moments.
Well, because like, see, I'm just doing the people's work. You know what I mean? I am respecting. I could scream to the heavens all day about how I thought this music tied in with this character and da da da. But then I am not going to shy away from the just rawness of how cool it sounds. And it's like, yeah, that was a hot scene. Of course, it was like gonna make me blush in an airport. Like I am going to say that. Like I'm not going to shy away from saying that because that's just not the kind of person I am. So
I get it. I travel a lot, and I've listened to a lot of these on the airplane. You're just like, well, all right, here we are.
I listened to a part of Silver Flame on one of my flights, and at some point, I had to stop. I was like, okay,
we're gonna take a break from this until
nobody is watching me because like everybody's in their own world. But if I'm sitting there just giggling to myself, I'm gonna look like a lunatic first. But second off, I'm just sitting there giggling my heart out.
I'm gonna expose you. She giggles and squeaks a lot when she's listening to this type of thing, and it's very noticeable. It's like if she's like quiet for a while and then she starts giggling, it's like, oh, I know what she's listening to.
So you just got to build a poker face is what we're hearing.
You just poker face.
I'm really bad. See, the thing is, I think this is about actors, maybe, I don't know, but I'm terrible at playing Tabitha. I cannot lie. Like, if I am sitting at a poker table, there's no way, like, I have to be in a character. Like, I just have to, like, transform into my Nesta, and then I can lie. I was just using that as an example, but I have to change into a character to be able to lie. I can't.
Because, like, Tabitha doesn't lie, but this character can.
I can't do it myself. I just can't. No, it was that scene. I think every time, because we're into our second episode. I'm doing notes for the second episode right now. And it was right at the beginning. So this isn't really a spoiler for anybody, but Cassian says something like, Nesta walks away and it's just like, don't think this is going to be me crawling into your bed. Like, this isn't going to happen. And he's like, you're going to be crawling in mine. And then this arrogance, I'm sitting there like,
she's also a Cassian girl.
I love Cassian.
Yeah, Cassian wears
your guys' voices blend really well. It's almost in a musical theater sense of way where you're picking two main love interests, and it's just they're so it's how I feel with Melody and Anthony as Reese and favorite. Mm-hmm. You guys have that perfect just synergy for your voices, and I don't even know how to explain it. I don't know how it does it.
I agree. There's just certain it's weird, but there's like aesthetically pleased. It's always so funny. Whenever I'm cast in anything, I'm immediately so curious who I got paired up with, especially for like not even necessarily romantically, but like what vocal type is going to play off of it. There is like it's almost your bill chords kind of a thing, and it's like an overtones. There's something where they just when they mix, you know.
I love all this musical terminology.
I was like, oh, I know, I can use this phrase, and you're going to get what I'm talking about.
Yeah. You're speaking her language, but you're also speaking mine to a degree. Mine is only a minor though, so. So I guess then, do you like SJM? Do you like fantasy books, or what is your genre of? I guess like personally, or I guess then also the second off question to perform.
Oh, to perform,
or just personally,
like favorite type of genre to read, and then also favorite genre to
So I'm interesting, and I'm kind of this way musically too, where instead of hyper focusing on like a whole artist or album, I am like so particularly picky about individual works, and so I can love like some really specific work. Now I do there are definitely like trends in specific ways too. Like I would say like just to give like some specifics of like things that I really really love. I am the biggest diehard of the Locked Tomb series. I love me some Gideon and Harrow. I love the so I love sci-fi, I love horror, I love weird, but like good weird, like Annihilation, the book, and the movie is pretty good too, but I think the book is just, I've read the book like 5 times, and I love that book so much. And I'm a big Stephen King fan too. I am almost done with Tower, and I'm emotionally crashing out really bad over it. So I love that. I really love Time Quartet from Madeline L'Engle, Rolling Time, Swiftly Sinking Planet, Many Waters, like all like that. But I also really like, I really read a lot of fairy tale retellings, especially in high school, and I still always place in my heart anything that I'm rereading Iron Widow right now, and I love Iron Widow so much. I'm so excited because I was like, okay, I want to be like really embedded again in this book before I read Heavenly Tyrant, and I'm just like, oh, I forgot how good this book was. I'm kind of all over the place, you know. If you give me a good book, I'm here.
I think we were talking about this the other night. She's making me watch One Piece.
Oh yeah.
I've never I've only watched like 2 obscure animes, and I had to take a break.
And you're going straight into One Piece.
I offered Naruto first.
Oh man, I don't know. I think you're on hard mode with both of them. Like, don't get me wrong. I love One Piece, but like I'm finally able to watch One Piece after like 15 years in and being very embedded and going, okay, now I feel like I understand how to enjoy this.
I feel like with One Piece, sorry to interrupt you, but now we're going on to it a little bit. I'll try and restrain myself. I've been watching One Piece for 7 years, and I feel like even though it is over 1,000 episodes, which is daunting to many, I think just because the episodes themselves are under 20 minutes, it's like, okay, well, we can get, and then if you're not feeling it, it's mostly easy to like just stop it.
And if you're into the SJM lore, if nothing else, One Piece will deliver that level of lore. So
I think if I was, because like there's not a question I would give you that I wouldn't answer myself. So like I think in your same vein, I can enjoy a lot of things. Horror, maybe not so, just because I'm kind of a little bitch when it comes to like being graphic, or I would say like horror-esque, because I need someone to hold my hand through a haunted house. You know what I mean? Like I can't do it myself, which sucks when you're single. Yeah. Because then I have to walk through it by myself, and then I'm like,
you'll hold like a friend's hand, and then use your other hand to punch whatever's attacking you.
So sorry. Side note: we left in October to come out here. And so my friends took me to a haunted house before, because that's like our tradition that's been since we were in high school. They finally have boyfriends now, which is like, yay for them. But also like, I don't want to keep fifth wheeling sometimes. Like, it's annoying, but legit, we always used to, when we were all single, used to like hold hands and da-da-da, and as we go through. And then they wanted to hold hands. And at some point, I just told the one guy, I was like, can I just grab on your back? Like there will be times when I just have to like grab on. Is that all right? Because
I need something.
Like, we just don't want to get separated.
You guys did this to me. If you're holding our hand, I'm grabbing something else. Okay. So just, and then because it was Zach and he's funny, he was just like, just don't grab anything below the belt. And I was like, would never dream of it. And then
although if you get jump scared, you may not be considering that.
But yeah, so I think the reason I like fantasy so much, and the reason SJM is like, I don't want to get too much on a hot seat, but like, I think her writing just really, especially when I read it at the time I did, was like, everybody has that one show or that one book that really resonated with them as a kid and helped them get through something, or like even a music or a band. Everyone has that thought. And ACOTAR was that for me. Like, I was like depressed in love and didn't think I'd die alone and da-da-da, like not confident in body type and whatever. And then just seeing characters like this go through, it's something. And then the utmost thing, which is why I focus on the romance between like, especially Cassie and Nesta, or recent favorite even, is her romance is so believable in a fantasy world. It's, I don't want to even just say perfect guys, because they're not perfect. They talk about it all the time. Like, they're not, the women aren't perfect, the guys aren't perfect.
It's like a realistic romance.
There's communication, there's conversation, there's I'm gonna be with you at your worst, especially Silver Flame. Jeez.
Yeah.
Like,
that was many worses.
Yeah. And with the SJMs I have read, like, I enjoy, I mean, they've all had really solid qualities, but I do think that Silver Flame was like, and I mean, I'm biased after trying Nesta, but also like, I think objectively it is the best one I've read so far. I haven't gotten to Throne of Glass yet. I've heard so many good things, so I'm excited there once I get done with Crescent City, but at the moment right now, Silver Flames is very, very much the
which is so funny because she's in Queen of Shadows right now. She's into the 5th book of Throne of Glass, and I will say my dream is to be a lead in the graphic audio. Would love to be that character. By the time they get there, maybe I will, maybe I won't, but I that's my dream character. Oh, this is exciting. You don't really sound like that, and that's a good thing. Like, you don't, a lot of the other voice actors, like, there's a level of, oh, I can pick out Lucian there,
right,
or I can pick out,
or some people who lend a bit more of their own voice to the character.
I can hear it a little bit, but you're probably the person we've talked to the most that I don't hear it.
Oh, interesting.
That's the least like character so far.
Very.
Some of it could also be personality too, because I think my like default setting, like, Nesta's such a like slow simmer energy comparatively.
It's so good.
That's true. Whereas you're slightly more bubbly.
Yeah, comparatively, especially.
Comparatively, yeah.
I can hear it a little bit when I'm like actually, but I'd be sitting here like staring at you in a weird like zone out way as you talk.
Like, I'm trying to picture this person. But so what we do in all of the interviews that we've done with voice actors so far is we pick a quote from this character. And
sure.
If you would like say that quote for us, because we also use them at the beginning of each episode.
Sure.
So on our outline, we actually have 2 options for quotes, depending on which one you want to do, or both, if you feel up to it, which you can. So one of them's like the shorter one from ACOTAR of, we insulted him, me and my sisters.
I love that one so much.
We talked about this in our episode in our 3rd season of just like the me and my sisters. Like, finally she's considering herself with them and saying my sisters.
Because all these men are talking, then all of a sudden I can just see you, or like as Nesta, straight back. The sisters are together, and it's just like, we insulted him, like so queenly, and like it was such a short line, but I loved it so much.
Yeah, and then the longer one, this one being from Silver Flame.
Oh, they're both good. I remember the second one more. I mean, I can do both. I just don't remember exactly how I delivered them. As long as you're okay with them not being like 100% exactly the way.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So the first one, probably, let's see. We insulted him, me and my sisters.
That is like,
Oh my god, that was so cool. I'm sorry.
Okay, it is so cool for me every time I see it. Again, like Tabby was saying, of how you don't quite sound like Nesta, but hearing that switched right into her voice, it brings it back immediately.
Hey, I had that hot moment just there, so actually I just had one. Yeah, that was hot. That was good. That was good. Take your time, man. Like, this is great.
I remember this one was a little hotter, so I'm going to turn the game, because I remember it was something like, why do you think I shoved you away? Why do you think I wouldn't speak to you? I do not deserve you, and I never, ever will.
Ooh, that was amazing. That's so cool. I love the little voice crack you did.
Oh,
that's so cool.
Oh my god, you were going to love Silver Flame so much.
I am.
You got some good stuff coming.
I'm going to listen to it over and over again.
We know the plot, but also at the same time,
I need to hear it.
Oh my god. That was so good. That was so
Thank
good,
you.
Natalie. I love my god. Thank you. I know we actually, it was funny because when we started that quote thing, it was hilarious because we did it with Gabriel. Gabriel was like my first voice act friend, and now we're besties.
Yes.
Oh.
Because he was telling me, because as an actor, I can understand trying to like, especially do it for an interview and kind of being like, where's that scene? Like, I need a moment to wait, what was this? And to get, so he just monologued to us. I gave him one thing of line and then
he pulled up the script because he still had that and just started reading through his line.
Just read the whole Lucian scene from the first book. I was like, I didn't stop him because I was like, oh my god, that's beautiful.
And we're watching it happen.
But I'm like, oh my god. I understand he's like, you can't just pull out just a quote from thin air. So the only one who can do that is Rhysand. But that's because I didn't want to give you something that was so, I don't know, textbook plain. I like giving you something that means something to me, not as a, oh my god, this is typical Nesta.
Right. It's not like a quote that's viral on TikTok.
Yeah.
My friend kept sending me the one of the ones that I think when slightly got popular was just Nesta going, Rhys is an asshole, arrogant, preening asshole, and she's like, I love the way you say asshole. It is always like embedded in my mind because of that.
Wow, that makes sense. Yeah, I think what we say a lot and what we're going to get into a lot in our book, in our deep dive of this, is how much the perspective shift. Mm-hmm. Again, we're Rhysand fans. Don't get me wrong, like we love Rhysand,
but also from anyone not Feyre or Rhys directly, he is an ass.
He can be an asshole, and I like that.
That same friend. We were out because we travel a lot together, so we were out getting food, and I think we were walking back, and we were talking about it because I was halfway through ACOTAR at that point, and I was just like, am I going crazy that I think Rhysand is a giant asshole? I do not like Rhysand. And he just goes, you're so perfectly cast. I'm so glad that Nesta, you could not have been more suited to play this game.
It's so true because, like, again, we're seeing Rhysand, especially in ACOTAR, because it's not third POV. It's all first POV. Mm-hmm. We're seeing him from Feyre's perspective.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I really do like about SJM is she's very good at the unreliable narrator kind of concept, or at least like the narrator only knows what the narrator knows, and we're getting what the narrator's experience is. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly you get the third person, or at least, Silver Flames is person limited, but you're still primarily in Nesta's head, and you're like, oh, that does make sense. Now I understand. And that's why I think once we get like Elaine's book, especially, we're just a whole other dimension's gonna open up.
I am scared of that.
Evil!
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you say that though, because like literally in the first 4 chapters, that was all we went through for our first episode that's coming out like in a couple days. Mm-hmm. And oh my god, just the little bit, and this is only just 4 chapters in, the little bit of perspective we get from her is wild.
Like, we even now, just these 4 episodes, we're seeing, just these 4 chapters, we're already seeing so many things that we thought we knew just thrown out the window and like replaced with Nesta's point of view of it. And it's like, I'm literally seeing this in a different way now.
Or how do I say, like, I can understand why Feyre's upset at the beginning. There's agency in being upset because she thinks that she's tried everything, but in reality though, has she? Because if we look at it from the other perspective, because it was one line specifically, I don't want to go down this forever, but because I could talk forever to you about this, but it was the first where Cassian comes to get her at the beginning, and she's like, no one has ever come over to our place. We have never gotten a perspective where Feyre has come to her door, knocked, and been turned away.
Right. Like the only time Feyre went was Frost and Starlight, and even then she didn't interact with Nesta because she wasn't there.
So it's when Nesta was surprised that Cassian was escorting her all of a sudden. It's like, when has there been a time where Feyre actually actively reached out bbesides kind of this, okay, come to dinner. And it's like, instead of going to her directly.
I think the big damning thing is not the lack of people going. You are obviously hurt and your behavior is clearly destructive and good, but what do you need? Like, what do you want? And like, how can we help? And other, like, this isn't, and I get that Nesta, a big part of the book is that Nesta doesn't even know yet, and she can't regulate that. But it is interesting how Rhysand is very patient and kind with Feyre when she doesn't know what she wants at the beginning of Mist and Fury. And he's willing to give her all the time and patience in the world. And they sure don't have that level of time and patience with Nesta, and which is a very interesting kind of contrast. Well, now Cassian is a matter, but Feyre and Rhys are like so in their own little world. And on the one hand, you're happy for them because obviously they both did a lot to earn, the happiness with each other, but then also they have bad habits and they have not learned. I think I was describing it as like they figured out themselves. Like the original trilogy is them figuring out themselves. That does not mean they have figured out how to heal and fix and have communication outside of each other yet.
Right.
They're not doing it maliciously. They haven't figured it out yet either.
I mean, so I guess kind of going off of what you both said. I mean, okay, playing devil's advocate for a moment. Of course, Nesta is spending a lot of their money, which Feyre did not spend a lot of the money, so I can understand why that would dwindle patience a little faster. But like with Feyre, like supposedly reaching out for dinner, that's not what Nesta needed. She probably needed something more one-on-one of someone coming to her and checking on her one-on-one, kind of why it seemed to work with Amren for a little bit, because she could just be with Amren and with Amren alone, rather than being expected to show up to dinner and interact with all these people all of a sudden.
And there are ways you can be there to be supportive without bankrolling too, that I don't think they had a lot of time. And it's one of those things where I'm like, and that's not like writing, it is very accurate. A lot of people deal with other people having trauma around them and making them uncomfortable this way. So it is very interesting to see that play out very in a very natural way in this setting. So but that's why I'm also like, I like Feyre more than I like Rhysand. But I also, I'm like, man, you guys are the authors of a lot of your own problems.
Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna give us agency now. Like, I think we can talk. So for anybody who hasn't read up until the end of Silver Flame, which we're so close, but if anyone hasn't, this is gonna be we're getting into spoiler content now. So like, if you haven't read up until the end, please refrain, or if you don't care, keep going. But just want to warn you, we can open up lore to talk about the end of Silver, or everything is open to discussion now.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you bring that up, because especially at the end, we talked about this, is that Feyre and Nesta didn't actually like each other. They didn't like each other. Elaine was their one connecting factor. And when that was gone, the relationship was gone, because they didn't find a common ground on anything, because they didn't really know each other.
And they didn't want to get to know each other.
Yeah, because Feyre was basing all of this off of, we're sisters, because that's supposed to mean something. But it's funny that she's the one bringing that up, because isn't she the one that's like, oh, found family and all that? So it's like, why are you still holding on to sisterly values? If, why don't you find something that you actually like about her? Because what is it that you actually like about Nesta to bring her in?
And I think the truth is she hadn't ever thought about that, or hadn't ever made conscientious decision to think about, like, do I like my sister? Why or why not? And I think a lot of it also comes down to the fact that, Nesta's very clear, I am my mother's creature, and that she spent so much of her developmental time being trained up to be a very specific view of femininity. By the time Feyre had come of age, they were no longer in a position where they could exist in space. So Nesta's trying to use the tool set that she was given, and Feyre had a totally different tool set and had to learn a totally different tool set. So Nesta, again, she's maybe not correct in this, but she's actively like trying to be like, I'm trying to figure out who I can marry. I can possibly get us enough money to at least put food on the table. Because I know that, and like, my skill sets are not to go out and go hunting at time. And this is how I know how to handle this. And then Feyre's resentful of that, because she's like, well, we have an immediate need that we got to meet somehow, and no one else is doing it. But then, like, if you were told that as a woman in this society, you have a very specific specific way you have to behave and you mentally have not figured out how to break out of that, then where else are you going to end up? There's so many interesting little, like, there's a lot of great nuance that you can really chew into that, where you're like, that's why, and, it makes sense why they come at it the way they do.
That is so epic that you say that, because like it is, because Nesta was using the resources that she was given. This is what I was taught. Like, she was perfectly taught to be in that society, and like all those things. It's like she probably was the person to go to for advice about like on these ballroom dances or whatever. Like, I'm thinking very Bridgerton-esque vibe. Yeah. And then they went into poverty, and all the stuff that she got taught is useless.
Her skill set doesn't apply to their new situation.
Doesn't mean anything.
And Feyre was allowed to be like adventurous and hear stories from her father, and her father indulged her in ways that Nesta was not allowed to be.
I bring it up all the time. If you're in your musical theaterness, it's a very Hamilton vibe of the Angelica Schuyler thing, of being the oldest, having to do all these responsibilities and letting the younger people kind of get away with it.
Yeah.
Or doing what they want.
Or, the oldest sister marries for an advantage, middle sister marries for love, and then the little sister basically does whatever they want.
Yeah. So it's crazy, because when we get that perspective, because we are going through Feyre's perspective, all of us are like, yeah, Nesta's a bitch and that's it. But then especially when I liked the hills that Nesta had. I think so many times over the books, there were moments like how I describe it as beginning of ACOTAR, not very friendly, at least from Feyre's perspective. End of ACOTAR, okay, we're sort of getting somewhere. And then plummets again, changed into Fae, Akamath, and then slowly gets a little better at where she's standing up for everybody in that queen scene. And then plummets completely after turning into Fae. And then Akawar, there's a big spike in good. I talk about this all the time. Nesta is a person of action. She only does things when there's like a dire need to do so.
If she has like a direct purpose.
Yeah, and the direct purpose, and in the moments of peace, she does not understand what peace is and cannot function in something that isn't good. That's why she was so useful in the war, whilst Elaine was useless. We have opinions about Elaine. I love her. Her Karina is her name. I love her voice actor. But Elaine is very.
Elaine as a character needs some help.
I'm very, very excited, because I have a feeling her book is just going to explain so much. My theory is that she is just constantly seeing, shit she does not know how to process or what to deal with, and that explains so much of her weird behavior. Because I think so much of her was also too that she has been like dolled up and put on pedestal this whole time, and a lot of the books have been hinting about like how detrimental that was, like how Feyre got even just a hint of that and was about ready to crawl out of her skin, in Mist and Fury. And I feel like we're gonna get like so much of that, and especially from Elaine's specific blow-ups, where she's like, I am not this porcelain doll. Stop treating me like I'm going to break at any given second. And I think there is more where this is all you want me to be. I'm not gonna fight you. I think she's a more passive type person, or at least she doesn't feel like she has to push against it. But she also is like, you also have to stop treating me like I am a child that's going to shatter if you sneeze in the wrong direction too. Like, and especially once she turns Fae and she has her own gifts from the cauldron and everything like that, that is really changing how she's perceiving the world. And they have all been so enmeshed in their own ish. I think they are missing the fact that she's like having like a nuclear internal meltdown and just trying to keep it together.
Wow, an Elaine fan. I mean, all of the stuff you're saying, I totally agree with.
It does make sense.
That's where I'm saying that they're going to push her to that point where she just goes fucking nuclear. Like, she either goes insane or she's going to turn evil. Like, evil in a way of, she's going to do something really stupid that's going to cause something to be very catastrophic to the world.
Right.
And
I sometimes have to remind myself not to rag on her too much, because, my opinion is that I do not like her. Just very bluntly, I don't like her. I don't like the way that she acts. So, I mean, of course, that was how she was taught. She was taught to be all doll. But I feel like because of that, she has, she's put out that performance basically. And then internally, her mind, I feel like she's probably actually pretty smart, because the other two sisters are pretty smart. So I feel like she's been hiding this thing. Maybe she's been working on her powers on her own, like her cauldron powers on her own. And because of that, like whenever this blow up does happen, like she's gonna turn evil, or she's gonna have like this whole other plan that isn't necessarily evil, but no one is expecting it. And like she just goes off, and then we're gonna figure out what's happening with Lucian, and he's gonna have to make a choice, and
she's just gonna disappear one day, and they're gonna be like, where the fuck did she go? And then she's just gonna be off with Lucian on the continent for some reason.
Probably fucking some shit up.
No, I love that you say that, because actually, so to be fair, she is an Asriel girly.
That too.
The fat boysness. I'm the Cassian girl. She's the Asriel girl. Not wanting them to be together because that's a fucking mistake.
I think either way, regardless of my opinions of Elaine and regardless of my wonderful feelings for Asriel, they are not meant to be together. In my opinion, that's fact.
I like Asriel Gwyn for their endgame. I think that makes the most sense. And I think I'm very fully sold on the Elaine is way too spring court coded to not be back there, whether or not that's her and Tamlin or whatnot. And I love I really, if Sarah can deliver where I think she's going with it, I think her and Tamlin are really fascinating and would be such an interesting couple. I'm curious to see where it goes.
Natalie, are you saying Elaine and Tamlin?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Elaine can make him less.
That breaks the sister code. Fuck someone that
your sister's ex.
That breaks the bro sister code.
And also indirectly, I mean, I know Lucian actually wasn't too close with Tamlin, but that's also kind of like, hey, I'm gonna fuck my best friend's mate.
I think the Lucian, and this is a rabbit hole too. I think that Lucian's mating is either he's covering Tamlin or it's something weird to do with Ghost.
So you're in the camp. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not coming at you. I respect your opinions wholly. I guess I think the spring court thing, I guess, yes, I do, in a respectful way, I disagree. Because I think, like, Tamlin is going to be with a human. And he's going to break some sort of hierarchy that way. And he's going to be with Briar, that random human that got saved at the Hybern camp. They were both at the camp at the same time. And we know when people are in the place at the same time, there could be some behind the scenes things that we don't know.
And we did talk about, we have our other episodes, we have talked about how Rhys knew that Farah, indirectly knew that she was his mate, even when she was human. And you know, with Cassian, he said that he
was drawn.
He knew it inside. He knew it. There was something off about, or something good about Nesta.
Off about her is the right way to
about her.
Something's off about this one. I don't know
what's wrong with her, but like the moment he first laid eyes on her, and she was still human then. So, you know, we've talked about how maybe the mate thing could be between human and Fae. It just gets stronger if the human ends up turning into.
I think you're right about the spring court thing, though. I think she's meant to be in spring. I think that's something we agree on. I think the thing is either Tamlin's going to recede.
He's going to abandon.
He's going to recede as the lead. Because remember, he said all the time, he was never poisoned to lead. He never wanted it to be there.
He was a warrior.
So he's either going to die or Lucian is going to take his place and they're going to rule together.
There's so much interesting with Tamlin that I really, really want his arc to come full circle. And the way she's positioning it from like a writing perspective, I'm like, I can see the structure there where I think that has to snap and come into full circle. And I think there's just so much about the stuff that everyone thinks happened with him versus all of the little doubts that have been planted where I'm like, there's an explanation for a lot of this. And even though he made a lot of bad choices, I don't think he is unredeemable. Does he deserve consequences for his stupid choices? Absolutely. But I don't think he's unredeemable. And to me, that makes him like an infinitely more interesting character and where I really want to see it. And there's a lot of ways I could see Elaine's personality type complementing where I think that story is going. So that's the main reason I could see them fitting together. And also too, I'm like, if we're talking, you know, Briar, my immediate thought is Briar Rose, and that's different than Beauty and the Beast, which is very much where Hamlin's living. So that's my little like conspiracy writer brain going. I don't know.
I think, what is it, Elaine? Sorry, I just had something I was going to say. I think I'm not in the like Tamlin doesn't need to be just redeemed camp, but I think, see, if you asked me this like months ago, my first gut reaction after reading Silver Flame before you ended it was SJM keeps bringing up about breaking mating bonds. And I'm like, okay, she keeps hinting at it. Where are we going to see that happen?
Yeah,
like, is that going to be Elaine and Lucian's mating bond? Are they going to break it? Or they even brought up subtly about, see, this is how much I know. One moment in that little Asriel cutscene where they were about to kiss and he's just like, do you want like to fight him or something?
Yeah,
it's
do you
like,
want to go into blood duel?
In the Autumn Court, they have a blood duel that that, you know, Lucian could have all rights to fight Azrael to the death or whatever. And I'm like, okay, why bring that up if we're also not going to see something like that happen?
I am firmly of the camp that Lucian is tied into the whole Swan Lake kind of situation going on with Koschei and what's her name, the youngest queen, Vasa. Yeah, my hope is I want to see him as like the romantic interest for Vasa, but
Interesting.
Okay, this recently I have been seeing so much like throuple energy from TikTok of Jerry and Vasa and Lucian.
I mean, they do kind of have. They've got their whole. I am very okay if we want to have a poly triad going on over there. Hell yeah, let's go.
First throuple.
I mean, she already hinted at a 3-way.
Yeah.
Can we see the Nesta, Cassian, Azrael? I kind of do want to see it. Though it is one of those things with Cassian as a character that I like so much in his romance with Nesta about just how, I won't say how feral, but he is so sweet, but he's also just so straightforward. Maybe that's what I like about him.
He's such a great energy, especially where she is the end of like that, the whole entire, like from end of ACOTAR War. I mean, like even during it, I feel like he is the type of energy someone like her needs to be able to fully realize who she is. And they clearly, I mean, right from the get-go, like they met each other and like, oh no, this is
happening.
This is going to be a thing. So, but I love that she also doesn't want to, like, she's like scared of messing it up and that it has significance and means something to her in a way nothing has for you too. And I think, but the way he's so patient with her and he's like, I am the perfect like golden retriever energy of, listen, if you need to punch someone out, I've been building these abs for 500 years. Let's go.
Like, good God. Do you understand why he's like my dream man? That is the guy if I was going to play anybody in this live action, it would be Nesta for sure.
You just need a muscled golden retriever energy guy.
Exactly.
Gotta go get bodybuilders.
Which in that case, I think Nesta would then be Black Cat energy.
I guess my question is, since we talked a lot about theories, so what I guess as a character, or like not even just as your character, but as you reading it from your perspective, what has been your favorite moments about Court of Thorns and Roses? Like, has there been a favorite moment, a favorite kind of zinger, or a favorite plot moment that was like, that kind of pulled me under the rug?
Yeah, I'm like trying to like whiz on through. I remember early on, I know a lot of people have this where like the first like 70% of OG ACOTAR, there's a lot of like, it's good, but like, do I love this? And then you get Under the Mountain and then you're like, oh, this is a complete game changer. And I remember some of the early scenes, some of the early stuff where Rhysand's starting to wall down just a little bit as things get more and more dire. And I was like, oh, this is real chemistry. The chemistry between these characters. And I remember that clicking. The music Under the Mountain scene of that, you know, to keep you from breaking was, shout out to Kelsey Wood. If you've heard her music, she wrote music for that scene and it's so beautiful.
That's cool.
If you haven't heard it, it's so good. She like has a whole thing. Like she literally has a motif where she's got this really high violin that you always hear and it's just and it's just like it's Feyre's name like laced in with it as Feyre. And I love Kelsey Wood's stuff so much. She nailed it.
That is awesome.
So I highly recommend that. And I remember that was like a really big moment in like the cauldron scene. And I loved when they were starting to do more of kind of the weird adventure, like the bone carver and the oh my goodness, the weaver. Yes, thank you for my brain. I was like, it was a formal noun.
Got you.
You know, I like kind of that weird fairy tale adventure kind of stuff whenever they have that going on, and the stuff like Braxis and this weird library. And I love when she has that sort of world building in there. That is really, really fascinating to me. And then like just the way that the final battle with Hybern went down, and then in Silver Flames, just the scene with the music box and Cassian, and then when Nesta is finally like when the wall finally comes down at the river with Cassian, like some of those moments I was just like, I love this. This is very good. I'm like, and it's one of those things too where it is a serious, like kind of like what you were saying earlier, where like there are definitely some ways where you're like you kind of have to turn critic brain off a little bit, but if you go along with vibes and the ride, it's so fun.
Oh yeah. I guess for me sometimes I can, when I'm sitting here in a podcast setting, I can critique and I can understand how others critique it. I don't think I necessarily disagree. It's more like I always think there's a reason though behind some of the especially when people critique the whole first book. It's like I understand. I think first of all that was SJM her early writing in just a very practical version, but also Feyre is very ignorant and young and this is all new. So the fact that she's so this way and when people kind of like get her out of character sense, like I kind of put the brakes, like devil's advocate. She doesn't know anything. So she's learning about it as she goes along and that's just how the writing is. And I think that that's meaningful in that way.
And still somehow foreshadowed.
Very foreshadowed. Oh my God.
It's not like there wasn't important stuff happening. It's just like the emotional click kind of there's just a totally different energy once you get under the mountain and suddenly it just everything changes. Like it goes from good to like, oh, okay. This is why this is the size it is.
I think Nesta and Cassie were more of the love at first sight than Rhys and Feyre was.
I think so.
I think Rhys fell in love with Feyre on first sight looking at her, but I don't think she did.
No.
But no, Nesta and Cassian were definitely
or
that.
at least like intrigued on first sight of like, okay, I kind of feel attracted to you, but I absolutely hate you for it.
The hottest man I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Well, and with Nesta and Cassian, I think there's a whole lot of speculation that can go into it, but I think Nesta, and depending on where this started, but Nesta clearly has some really specific and intense, like there is something that is going to, once we go over the precipice of this whole Fey realm stuff, we don't come back from this. And I think she is very cognizant of this. I don't know what origin point of that was, but I think for her, it's not so much that I don't know about this Cassian guy. I think like immediately she's like, oh no, I really like him. Oh no. Like I think from the get-go, she's like, there's something there. But I think he is still, she knows that like going there means, event horizon. And that's why she fights it for so long. Because like even too, once they're like almost there and she's like, I can't talk about mate stuff because that's just another thing that puts me even further into I'm not human anymore. I don't know who I am anymore. What does this even mean? And I wonder if there's going to be more into that because she is really attached to this kind of concept of being human. And there is like a real fear and stigma around being Fae that she feels that Feyre does experience. And I wonder where that comes from.
And I wonder if it's related to Elaine in that aspect because Elaine, her thing has been that she wants to be back as a human as well. So I wonder if that's going to come up again related to that.
We keep thinking because Amren keeps warning Elaine, like, there's no going back to being human, girl. Like, you can't change it. She is going to try to find some way to change it.
And it'll probably be through some kind of black magic and not good and probably will go wrong.
So I will say about the Nesta Cassian thing, I think about, somebody said something and I was like, fuck you. I don't want this to happen. But it was saying that Cassian never said I love you in the book. I know.
I had forgotten. I didn't want to.
He never said I love you to her, and she did at the end.
And we haven't confirmed that they actually have gone through a mating ceremony too. And
they just said they were going to, and then never. I mean, they're mates regardless of whether they had the ceremony or not,
right?
Because that's how at least Rhys has described it: is that they had that sex, they had that. Is it so crazy? I think that was the thing that blew my mind the most about this: is that she had such a steel will that she kept the mating bond from actually clicking.
Yeah,
she kept back that power.
Even though the constant like sex that they had prior to that, she just held it back. It's like, how do you even manage that?
Nesta was so badass she held back a mating bond. Yeah, that is crazy.
There's also the theory about her using the cauldron powers that the mating bond may be made because of the cauldron powers, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, I think I see where Sarah might be going with this, and I as someone who desperately loves Nessian and Cassian, or Nesta and Cassian, I love them as a couple, but I am desperately, very, very concerned that I don't think they're endgame, which is devastating. I am very sad about it, but I am more and more have that sinking feeling of like, no, I think that's where we're going. So we'll see.
I've never heard that theory, but that is intriguing, especially since you mentioned that Cassian never said I love you. What if it happens that Cassian, if say, just for the sake of this theory, say that mating bond was made by Nesta, then what if like Cassian's actual mate comes along? Then what happens then?
The only way that I can, no.
Oh no, we're breaking her heart.
If you tell me this, Natalie, because the thing is, that means that he's gonna die. There's no way that can happen. And I know what you're saying, but what that is implying to me is that because he loves her so much.
No, I do not think they are splitting. I think it would have to be that,
and
which is devastating.
The only thing that could do that is death.
Yeah.
Because he is not...
Or if his actual mate came along, he rejects that mating bond to be with Nesta. And
so the rabbit hole is that Elaine has said, there's a scene, or I don't remember which book it was in, there was something that Elaine said offhand where Cassian goes, oh, it's going to take a lot more than that, kill me. And Elaine just goes, no, it won't.
No, it won't.
That, when someone mentioned that, I was like, oh no, we're in danger. And I'm so scared.
I just got chills from that.
I know, and I know that quote too.
Yeah.
And I highlighted it and I'm like, Elaine,
what are you seeing? Elaine, what are you seeing and not telling us?
My manager also, Shannon, was like telling me about the Cassian dying theory, and I was like, he is my man, okay? I do not want him dead. Please, SJM.
Don't do that to us.
Oh, I see what you're talking about, but I'm dutifully ignoring it.
Yeah. I had to sit with it for a little while and just be like, I want to be in denial about this, but I don't know if I can. And
well, you ready to voice Nesta's grief?
Whoa.
She made that bond for herself to keep it. I don't know. Like
so who knows? And she's twisted our expectations beforehand, but she also does love to plant these little things, and they have turned out to be correct in enough circumstances where I'm like, oh no. Oh no.
I'm protecting myself. I have a pillow right around me now. Like I don't want. I see what you're talking about, and I see all you writers, but at the same time, think about us little people.
I know. I'll be right there with you. I promise. It will be no less emotionally devastating for me than it will be for you. But I have the writing gut sensation of think there's something to this too.
Do you want to hear my hot take about that? I would rather Reese and Feyre die than Cassian. I would rather them die with that fucking bond that they
they have
made together.
And
then
they broke.
Is it broken?
I think so.
I think that's implied because like I don't know because Nesta did that at the end. Is it really broken? I guess that's like
that would be like the main deciding factor, actually.
Yeah, and is it like, because magic, is like you have to word it in a really specific way, and if you don't account for how things can go wrong,
yeah, because Feyre technically she took her last breath.
She died, but time stopped, and then so the tattoo didn't have time to disappear. So I don't know because that's like the indication of whether or not it's there or not.
Well, if they died, they have Nyx. Nyx can take over.
And doesn't Cassian not have the tattoo anymore? But Nessus does still.
No, her tattoo with Cassian disappeared, but then she got a new tattoo when she made the deal to save Feyre.
And that's the star, 8-pointed star.
So she got it back. It's the same. It's the same one? Yeah.
Well, but then she lost it and then got it back.
Why
is it the same tattoo?
Okay,
we can go into.
But I guess, oh my god, now you're like, because see, no one else has kind of come back to us with their theories, so it's very interesting. I guess the last one I wanted to tell you about that I was thinking about was thinking that Tamlin saved Reese's sister theory.
We've had that theory since like our fangirl episodes in the first, when we talked over the first book.
Because we were talking about the lake at the, not the lake, but I also think that something has to do with the water system. Like something's going on with the water, bro.
Before you go into your theory, I'll just explain that one real because it kind of has something to do with that. If you remember the pool of starlight in the spring court, we had a theory that that each court had their version of a pool of starlight, and that those were used for transportation between courts, similar to the doors, the tunnels, the ancient tunnels. And so going into this theory, potentially that's how the sister could have gotten out.
What if she's like in the water? What if it's like a Lady of the Lake scenario where like the reason it's starlight is because she's in it?
Right. If it was just water before, but then she's now there.
And she's just been holed up there, and that's why we didn't see any wings. Okay, cardinal rule number 1 of TV movie death. TV movie death. If I do not see a body, or I do not see the actual scene.
No, I fully believe she's still alive. And that's kind of where the whole thing is that a lot of Rhysand's feelings and kind of the way we've been colored to look at Tamlin has to do with this notion that he gave them up and he intentionally let them die. And I do not think that's the case at all.
I've seen theories that Tamlin and Rhys's sister are a couple.
I think so. Like, I think that could be a possibility.
I feel like the mother actually is dead. Or
I think their mom's dead.
I think the sister was rescued.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the mother. I was like,
no.
Rhys's mother is dead, but I feel like Rhys's sister, she has to be alive.
That was weird. It also seems like very much a motherly protective thing. Go, I'll hold them off. You run.
Which is why Tamlin would have burned Rhys's mother's wings, because then other people would see, why is there only one set of wings here?
And the story wouldn't match.
Right. So if he burned them, or burned like just
that's
the two
why
wings.
I am so convinced that there's way more going on with Tamlin than we've been privy to yet.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think he's just in the low right now where it's like, I think...
No, he made stupid choices. He's, I think he earned his place there. But I don't think he's irredeemable, and I am curious to see.
I think that's my overall SJM thing that makes it such an enjoyable thing, is that you can see it, and you can agree with both sides, but at the same time having this very interested conversation, debate, however you want to have with somebody about who's more right. Because again, like, to me, there's very much moments where they both are. And I don't think I've ever had that in a book before, where like it's been very clear, because in very other romantic-y dramas, as maybe there is very a clear protagonist is right, everybody else is wrong. She's in the right. Even, Fourth Wing, I'm a big Fourth Wing fan. I mean, there's maybe a little bit of that. Rebecca Yarros is no SJM to me, but she's probably a close second in writing that way. But in all the other books I've ever had, it's always, there's this moral high ground the main character has that nobody else has, and everyone else can be flawed, these people can't. And I like how this is not that way. I like how everybody in her universes are kind of all subject to scrutiny at multiple times.
And they have to face like actual realistic consequences. Like, about how we've had like the debate of whether we think Tamlin is redeemable, in the sense of like, he probably is, but like, you're thinking that he'll probably die in some heroic way. And then my thought on it is that dying is too easy. That's the coward's way out. He has to redeem himself in actions.
We need to start a betting thing now with people. We need to betting what's going to happen.
Get $10, it goes this way.
But I don't, this is so interesting. Okay, now we have to send each other. Do you have an Instagram, by the way? Like, okay, we're going to send you
We will get all your social medias.
I wanted you to have your kind of space to say, like, is there anything you're doing right now that you're looking forward to coming out, voice acting wise, or anything you wanted to promote about yourself, Mama?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because NDAs are fun. It's weird. Most of the stuff I can talk about has been a little on the quiet side. So, I mean, this is something I'm very excited for. I'm just waiting for that next book whenever Sarah deigns to grace us. Because I'm like, as interesting as Crescent City has been, I'm very eager to be like, can we get back to ACOTAR, please? I really want another mainline ACOTAR. And I'm really excited to be able to do more with Nesta. I was glad. Let's see. I Fairy Tail and like, if you're into Fairy Tail the anime, I was the villain of the last arc. That was really, really fun to do. Left off on a cliffhanger though, so
yeah. Wait, which character were you?
Selene, the moon dragon.
Oh, that's good. I didn't notice it.
You were more into animes than
my main three were One Piece, Naruto, and Fairy Tail.
Oh, very cool.
Those were like my main three animes growing up.
So
Nice.
that was the one I just finished. Honestly, this year, my kind of hope is that because the anime thing has been really big for me the past couple of years. I was in a show called Spy Family that got really, really big, and then been out to like a million different Comic-Cons so much. So I've been traveling quite a bit, which is very fun and very exciting. And I actually had to meet so many ACOTAR fans that way too, which was really cool. But this year, it looks like I might be having a slightly less chaotic. We'll see. Maybe slightly less chaotic year. So this is actually going to be kind of my year to crack down and actually get back to my writing and making things years. So I don't have anything to promote yet, but if you want to follow me on my socials right now, the biggest thing I'm sharing is I have a lot of like granny hobbies, and I really love all things fiber arts. I'm really kind of in like a needlepoint and cross stitch era right now. Some embroidery. So if you want to see that, and I have three cute little dogs. I'm sorry, forgetting we have 3 now. It's only had them for a while, but I'm used to just saying 2 dogs. But we have 3 chihuahuas.
Oh,
they're cute. So I'm trying to like keep the vibes wholesome and creative right now. So
you gotta send some pictures. I love cute dogs.
That sounds like the type of Instagram page I would follow.
Yay!
Dogs.
I know what it's like to have a stressful feed, and I try not to contribute to that as much as I can within reason.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, it was so great talking to you. Like so much theory that I didn't think that you were not that I was assuming anything, but I didn't think that you'd be necessarily interested in. But wow, I mean, as a writer, it kind of makes sense now.
You're thinking in a writer brain versus the act brain.
I do have a friend who is like constantly like who's very, very embedded. So she's also like feeding me a lot of this. And I don't know if it was just me, if I would have gone down this far, but because she's there, I'm like, oh no, and now on my feed, and so it's fun. I love it.
Shout out to her. She's a true fan.
Yeah,
for real.
She is.
But yeah, so like go ahead and follow. We'll put all of your social medias in the bottom, like please. And then us, we are transitioning to. We figured out that Patreon has a video limit. And our episodes are pretty long, so we're trying to figure out a way for our fans to maybe create a YouTube membership where it's like so we can have unlimited access there. We're trying to figure out that now since we know that. So we might be moving our Patreon, so we're trying to figure some stuff else out. But again, it's our first interview for the season. I'm so excited because we are talking to John next time.
Awesome.
God, it took a little bit to get him, by the way. Like he was busy we were going to get him for season 2, Mist and Fury. I wanted to wait to savor you because I was like, I want this for this.
Because you're like main character.
And I was like, of course, get John here. And then I was like, please have your schedule be good because I don't know if I can talk to you. I'm a very professional person. We already went through this with Anthony, but it might be a little bit hard.
It might be a little bit harder, but you survived Anthony.
I just don't want to seem like a crazy person. It's all out of love and respect. But at the same time, it could sound like a crazy fangirl, which I try not to do. But
it may start out that way, but I think you'll enjoy talking with us.
I think the fact that you're cognizant of it already helps so much.
It's like, okay, I know I'm crazy and I'm letting you know that, but I also know that it's not just a pretty face thing. It's a very, anyway. Yeah, you are right. At least I am. Let me give myself that credit.
Yeah. Like there's a time and place, and as long as I haven't gotten that vibe, I'm sure you're fine.
Thank you so. I mean, you are wonderful. Like, I mean, this has been like so much fun. You are so great. You're so nice. So how many so good thoughts, and also like very much in the music realm for us. So very resonating with us. So thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Please follow all of our social media accounts. We got Instagram, TikTok just got banned last night, and then it got
back this morning
up. So let's see if we have that whole thing.
Who knows?
So please follow us on TikTok if you can. Is our stuff still there? I believe.
Yeah, it's all still there technically.
So we'll see how long that lasts. And yeah, so we're going to be deep diving into. I think it's but yeah. So we'll be going into our next deep dive. Will be chapters 9 to the end of 13. Which spice. There's some spice coming in. So yay!
We're beginning the spice early.
Yeah. But yes, please go and buy the graphic audio if you haven't, please, for ACOTAR. I will say this for a million times. You can also get it on Audible if you have credits. So please go and do that, and we'll see you guys all in the next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye.